Good evening. The Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will now come to order for February 1st, 2017. It is now 6:30. Platting Board meets each Monday on the first and third Wednesday, except holidays, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for a regular meeting, the board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. May we have roll call?
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Evanson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Enix?
Here.
Mr. Porter?
Here.
Mr. Cross?
Here.
Ms. Ritz?
Here.
Mr. Seward has been excused. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to approvals. We have action summaries from Wednesday, December 7th, 2016 and Wednesday, January 4th, 2017. May I have a motion to approve the action summaries? Trevor Edmondson moves and Don Porter seconds. Is there any opposition to approving the motion of the action summaries? Seeing none, the motion passes. We will now move to special order of business. Are there any disclosures? Dan Young.
Yes, in the case before us tonight, I don't have the number.
S12308.
Thank you. Yes, S12308. My firm has worked for the petitioner in the past and has ongoing business relationships. However, we have no business in this property, no involvement with this property. I have no financial interests, and I can act fairly and impartially.
Thank you. May I have a motion directing Dan Young to participate in case S12308? Don Porter moves and Kevin Cross seconds. Mr. Porter, would you please speak to your motion?
Yes, I move to direct Dan Young to participate in case number S12308, Simonson Estate Subdivision. He has stated that he has no financial interest in the property, although that he has done business and that he can make a fair and impartial decision. So there's no significant monetarily involvement.
Thank you. Are there any other findings for the record? Seeing none, is there any opposition to having Mr. Young participate in case S12308? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Dan Young, you are directed to participate in case S12308. Are there any other disclosures? Don't see any. We will now turn our attention to informational items. I see there is an abbreviated action summary from January 3rd and January 9th. 2017. We'll now turn to the public hearings. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at this meeting is after staff presentation is completed on public hearing items. I will ask the public testimony on the issue. People who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners and their representatives will have 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs each get 5 minutes, and individuals have 3. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on an issue unless the board questions you further. We'll now take up case S12308, Simonson Estate Subdivision, lots 3A through 8A, Block C. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for the subdivision of 6 lots and 1 remnant parcel into 6 lots with a variance from Anchorage Municipal Code 2108030K2. The width of a lot shall be at least 1/3 the depth of a lot. The petition site is located just north of West Marston Drive, east of Pete's Place, and west of 4 Acre Drive in Turnagain area of Anchorage. The property is zoned R1A, Single Family Residential District, large lot. Each proposed lot meets the minimum lot size and width required by the R1A district. The owners of the property involved in this platting action are seeking to combine their existing Simonson Estate subdivision lots with portions of the remnant parcel which abuts their lots and will extend the mean high tide line of Knick Arm as shown on the proposed plat. This remnant parcel was the subject of extended litigation over the ownership. The Alaska Supreme Court ruled in favor of the owners involved in this platting action. This subdivision seeks to clarify and depict these parcels with new legal descriptions as required by the Supreme Court. The petitioners are seeking, as I noted, a variance from AMC 2108-030K2. The width of the lot shall be at least 1/3 the depth of the lot for all proposed lots within this subdivision. There are 4 standards required to be met for granting of a variance, and I'll go through each one separately. Standard number 1, staff finds that this standard is met. The remnant parcel is owned in common between all 6 applicants. By subdividing this remnant parcel and incorporating portions of it into the existing lots, the resultant lots exceed the maximum width to depth ratio of 1:3 permitted by Title 21. As this subdivision application is the result of a legal decision and there is no other reasonable alternative, this constitutes a special circumstance that makes the strict application of the code unreasonable. Standard number 2, staff finds that this standard is met. The granting of this variance will not negatively impact the neighboring property owners or the public. It will not permit a use not already enjoyed by property owners in the area. Future development will consist of single-family homes, which is in keeping with the existing neighborhood. Standard number 3, staff finds that this standard is met. The variance will not have the effect of nullifying the intent of the subdivision regulations or the Anchorage 2020 comprehensive plan. There are special circumstances affecting this property which warrant this variance. The remnant parcel is currently owned in common, and this plat seeks to subdivide it in a manner that allows individual ownership of portions of it. Standard number 4, staff finds that this standard is met. Undue hardship would result from the strict application of the subdivision regulations. The applicants are attempting to comply with a legal decision, and if this variance were not granted, they would be unable to comply with the court's decision to require the remnant parcel be subdivided and incorporated into the existing lots within this subdivision. So with that being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the variance from AMC 08030K2 for all the lots within this subdivision, subject to recording a suitable plat within 24 months or any time extensions that may be granted. And then 2, approval of the plat for 24 months subject to the conditions listed on pages 7 and 8 of your staff packet with 1 minor modification. The Watershed Management Department submitted revised comments which affects the condition B2. I have provided the board with revised language on that condition to state resolve with Watershed Management the need to dedicate a 7.5-foot drainage easement on proposed lot 8A extending along the east property line from the southeast corner to the northeast corner. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff? Don Porter.
So I see that this may just be Lot 8A. Is this going to affect any of the other lots? Are we going to see any of the other lots? Or is this all for the Simonson estate, not just 8A.
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, I'm unsure of what your question is, but I'm going to try and answer it as I understand it. The petitioners involved in this action, there are 6 of them. They're trying to subdivide the remnant parcel and incorporate portions of that remnant parcel into their existing lots. The condition B2, which requires the dedication, or I should say for the petitioner to resolve the need to dedicate that drainage easement for Lot 8A, only affects Lot 8A and not the other lots within this subdivision. So if I understand your question correctly, it would only affect Lot 8A.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions for staff at this time? May we have the petitioner's representative? Could you please
Sure.
state your name for the record?
Charles Spinelli.
Charles Spinelli. Thank you. Did you want to reserve any time for rebuttal?
I'd like to ask a question. I've been kind of the leader of this pack with my neighbors. There's 6 of us, and I, filed the plat and hired the people to do it. Does that mean that these individuals here that came to be individuals are all included in the 10 minutes, or do I get, as the petitioner, the 10 minutes and they get 3 minutes as
I think I've been told that they're co-petitioners.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. They are all co-petitioners in this platting action, which only allows them in total 10 minutes. So Chuck, to answer your question, all of you get a total of 10 minutes.
Did you want a few minutes to allocate your time between?
I was hoping to do it quickly, but we'll see.
They said that you're in charge.
All right.
The 10 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I'm representing the petitioners tonight. The staff's presentation has laid out the existing situation and what the petition intends to do. Briefly to recap, the petition intends to combine the existing 6 lots within Simonson's Estate subdivision with Simonson Estates remnant parcel, which is subject to litigation over ownership. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the owners, and a corrected claim deed and boundary line survey has been recorded. This subdivision will clarify and depict these parcels with a new description. This is to simplify the tax assessment process and promote further development of these lots. I'd like to point out that the owners are dedicating an additional 10 feet of right-of-way along Marston Drive, which will meet the current city requirements. The associated variance of the width and depth and ratio meets all 4 requirements as detailed by staff, and the presentation was noted in staff packet on pages 5 and 6. I don't think I need to recap these, as it is evident that conditions have been met and the variance should be approved. With that said, I'd like you to approve the variance and approve the preliminary plat subject to staff's 3 conditions. And I will have time to answer hopefully some of those. What I supplied to you, I hope you read the note that I put in the staff packet in the beginning. We've been at this since 2004. We got into a lawsuit over who owned this property because the municipality thought that somebody else had owned it. And so we went to court, won the deal. They appealed, went to the Supreme Court. We won again. And so as we were working with an assessment district, an assessment, so I was ready to build on my lot 8, and I came up with this house plan and decided and started to build. But I wanted to do a boundary line survey, corrective deed, record of survey, to correct what I believed was the proper way to do this. And so I hired Gastaldi Landscape Survey. They did the corrective deed, record of survey. You're all familiar with what a record of survey is, right? So, I read the record of survey 10 times, myself, and understood that my record of survey would be the document that would combine my lot. So I presented it to Tom Knox, the city surveyor, who approved my record of survey in 2011. In 2013, I got a tax notice that had my name et al. For, like an acre and a half or 2 acres or 2.5 acres, 168,000 square feet, 3.5 acres, whatever it would be, 4 acres. And I called up the municipality wondering what it was, and they told me, well, the case has now, been around for, 5 years, and we decided to start taxing you. And really what they were trying to do is buy property for the lift station for AWU. And so then this whole issue came up that we don't own the property. And so, I don't know why we're even doing this here. I gave you I put in your packet here the Supreme Court case. And if this was just one owner with one lot arguing over this, the case would have, the Supreme Court would have ruled in my favor, and I would have got my one lot. It just happened that 6 individuals went there and did it at the exact same time. The Supreme Court ruled for all 6 of us that we owned to mean high tide. And so, there's language in there that says something like, well, although it's obvious from these 4 corners, the plat is not correct. The plat was incorrect to begin with. And so that's what, that's my position on the whole thing. And, I could go through a list of things that happened, but I want to save some time for other things. But getting to the problem I have is Friday, we had Gastaldi working on this thing, and he called me up a few weeks ago and said, or a month ago, and said, they want an easement on your property for this storm drain. And it's only, they're asking for a 15-foot easement. I said, it's only like 2 feet on my property. I said, no big deal. And if you look at this thing here, this shows where the storm drain easement, the existing facility is, and it also shows, my property line. And that little dashed line that's like, really close to the property line is the 2 feet or so that I thought I was going to have to give in this easement. Well, Friday when I got the packet, the packet said 15 feet on my property. So I was more than a little bit upset, and so I went to the municipality and talked to them. And what they told me basically was, well, if we can't get the owner of lot 6A to give us an easement, we're just going to move the whole thing on your lot, so that they'd have 15 feet to do it. Well, I just said that wasn't going to work. I'd already, I'd paid to have this house designed. I've been ready to go for years now, but we didn't have water or electric and gas. And this year I got everybody together and we all put in and got our electric and gas in. So we're almost ready to start building things. And now this comes up. And my house would be a ranch with a daylight basement. And this driveway depicts what is going to be, like a 4-car garage underneath the unit that would go close to property line. And the property line between my lot and the lot 6A, my lot was raised about 7 or 8 feet during the RID process. Instead of taking all the material off-site, they asked us if they could put it on our lots and save a lot of money for the city, although we never saw any savings. But it would have saved a lot of money not to export all that stuff, and they just placed it on our lots. So our lots are high, and this lot is really low. So I had anticipated putting a retaining wall down the side of this property so that I could, come in at the height, and then slowly go around and drop down towards property line to this area in the back where you can see that second driveway, or the driveway towards the back of the lot. And we're only 8 feet away. We've got a pretty tight curb in there. So the more I slept on this, and Dave Whitfield was very helpful in getting them to go from 15 feet to 7.5 feet, which I appreciate. The problem is, if I'm going to use this house plan, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. It's going to be a new design and everything else. And I frankly just don't understand how the municipality could have a storm drain on a lot next to me and decide that I need to give them an easement when they've got 8 feet to work in on the existing storm drain. Any other time, I'll just hold.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes, 1 minute and 50 seconds for rebuttal. And does the board have any questions from Mr. Spinelli? Don Porter.
Through the chair, Mr. Spinelli, so do you understand what the drainage easement is? You're saying that basically if you put a retaining wall in, then the drainage easement will conflict with that? I guess, could you help me understand why a drainage easement would prevent you from doing what you're doing?
Well, the municipality wouldn't allow me to put a retaining wall in the drainage easement. And what I'm anticipating is that, this storm drain could have been done. There was $1 million allocated to storm drainage when they did the LID improvements in this subdivision. There are 2 storm drains, one at like 25 or 30 feet, and another one at 10 feet. And they could have easily put this storm drain into one of those other storm drains. God knows why they didn't, but they didn't. But this thing, is there. The lot next door is going to be developed, I don't know when, but mine will be developed fairly quickly. And if I put this driveway and everything in, and, they take this 7.5 feet on my property, what they're probably going to do is want to put the storm drain right down the property line. And so then they would destroy, the driveway and the retaining wall and everything else. And that is my heartburn with this thing, besides the fact that the storm drain isn't on our property right now. And it never has been. And why do they, why don't they just go to the original owner and get a storm drain easement and leave it where it's at?
So I guess my question to you is, if we go with the recommendations of the Platting Board, can you still work with that at 7.5 feet?
Well, I'm going to have to redesign the house. And, frankly, I thought I've done this process twice now. I've got a record of survey signed by Tom Knox and approved by the municipality of Anchorage. I've asked them over and over again, why am I doing this? Why are you sending me a text saying I did what I was supposed to do in 2011, and they have been ignoring it? And I said, are you going to take it back? Are you going to sue me or send me a letter saying it's not good? And they won't do that, but they kept insisting that the only way I was going to solve paying everybody else's taxes was to do a plat. So finally, I got tired and said, okay, I'll do the plat. And the first thing they said was, you can do a short plat, and there won't be any fee. Okay, great. Well, then they go, well, no, it's going to have variances, and it's going to have this, so you're going to have to do a plat, and we're going to charge a fee. So we paid the $6,500 for the fee, and we went along, and it was going to be a slam dunk no-brainer. Well, it is pretty much a slam dunk no-brainer, except for this one item. And so this one item is, I've had it up to here with what they have been doing to us with this property. It's cost me $30,000 in legal fees, between me and, well, just for me. The other people have been putting in thousands of dollars also. And it seems completely outrageous to me that they would ask for this storm drain easement when they've got a perfectly good storm drain in there. you know, I live, well, 8, 9, 10 lots down on the coastal trail right now in Sandstrom subdivision, and there's a storm drain easement on my property for a storm drain that goes for Hood Creek. It's 5 feet wide. 5 feet on my side, 5 feet on the other side. Same drain pipe, I'm sure, that's in this one. And yet, on this one, they want, you know, first they wanted 15, now 7.5. And really, I'm 8 feet away from the whole drain. I don't understand why I am, or our plat is being encumbered by this thing.
Okay. Dave Whitfield, can you weigh in on this issue?
Yes, to the chair, to the board, Mr. Porter, you had asked the petitioner if they were okay with the 7.5 feet that was being required by, or I should say being recommended by the Watershed Management Department. The recommended language by staff says that the petitioners will need to resolve the need for the 7.5 foot easement with Watershed Management. So if in the event that the petitioners, staff, Watershed Management can figure a solution that doesn't require an easement or requires less of an easement than is required or than is being required at this point, then we could simply sign off on that condition. So, Mr. Spinelli, I know you're concerned about dedicating a 7.5 foot easement, but the way that the language is proposed right now does not necessarily require 7.5 feet. So I just want to be clear to the board that the language proposed does not necessarily mean that a 7.5 foot easement will be dedicated with this plat.
Is there an existing actual drain in place, or is this a proposed drain?
Through the chair, to the board, I believe there is an existing system there. Where it is exactly, I'm not sure. What Watershed's justification for requiring the additional easement on Mr. Spinelli's property, I'm unfortunately not at liberty to speak to. I just don't have that knowledge. I know that this is what they're recommending and therefore carrying forward. So.
Thank you.
I know where the storm drain is and where the easements are.
Dan Young.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Spinelli, I'm looking at the map that you showed us for Lot 8A.
Yes.
And it shows the storm drain. It appears to be off of your property.
Yes.
Okay. And do you believe that you would be able to work with Watershed Management and resolve this?
If they come up with a reasonable solution, but you could see what my parameters are, you know, with the house that we've got designed. This SDMH is storm drain manhole. That was located by our engineer. There's another storm drain manhole right where the driveway turns into the second garage, and then it continues down to this 12-inch CMP, which is where it outfalls, and it goes into just a ditch and goes into a 30-inch manhole or whatever that goes under the coastal trail. So we've located, you know, where all the facilities are, and these little measurements are the depth, the distance from the actual pipe that's there.
So, Mr. Spinelli, what I see on this map is that the storm drain is between 7 feet 6 inches and 8 feet from your property line.
Yes.
And isn't it reasonable that if they have 7.5 feet on either side of the storm drain, that they're taking less than 6 inches of your property for right-of-way?
That would be great.
So, do you think you could work that out with?
Well, yes, I could work that out easily.
Did I miss something?
Well, we've been through that conversation, and it went from 15 to 7.5 feet.
Well, I think it's probably still 15, but it's 7.5 on either side. And if it's 7.5, no?
7.5 feet on my property.
Correct.
It should be, as far as Mr. Whitfield, isn't it typical to have 15-foot right-of-way total, with half on each side?
I believe Watershed Management is wanting a total of 30 feet is what they told me. Whether that's excessive or not, I couldn't tell you. I'm telling you what I was told, which means that they would want 15 feet from the center line of the utility. So that is approximately 7.5 feet onto Mr. Spinelli's property. So, you know, it's a resolve comment. The board could consider the resolve comment and approve it as proposed. The board could, you know, deem that the condition is unreasonable and strike it altogether. The board is you know, you're capable of doing whatever you'd like. If you want to amend the condition as written, if you want to strike it, you can do what you'd like. So the proposed language is an effort to meet kind of in the middle. The Watershed Management Department is requesting 7.5 feet. Staff believes that by adding the resolve portion of that, it gives us the ability to work it out in the interim between the preliminary plat phase and the final plat phase. So,
Thank you. And through the chair, Mr. Whitfield, could you tell us about why this easement couldn't be on the adjacent property?
through the chair, Mr. Young, I couldn't tell you that. The only thing I can tell you is that the Watershed Management Department is requesting the 7.5 feet. I can't tell you why it's not on the other lot.
Thank you. And Mr. Spinelli, can you tell us why it's not on the other adjacent property, or why it can't be on the adjacent property?
When I was there Monday, I asked why there was 15 feet on my property, and they told me that if they can't get an easement on lot 6A, they were going to move the whole thing onto my property. That's what they told me. So then, you know, Dave got involved, and Jerry Hansen got involved Tuesday, and you know, then it went down to 7.5 feet on my side, and you know, I was almost ready to do it, and then I brought it back to the office and had my son plot out this house that we had, and you know, looked at the driveway and thought, well, if I build this house next year, and 5 years from now they decide to change this storm drain, it is going to be, you know, a real mess around this place, you know, trying to get that storm drain in there. And I don't understand why, you know, that thing's only probably at the manhole maybe 7 feet in the ground, and I think it's less than, and then it daylights back here in the back, which is maybe 10 feet below the street level. So it isn't very, and this lot between my lot and that lot is probably 6 feet of elevation difference. So the storm drain is probably 3 or 4 feet underground at the road, and then it starts to daylight, you know, in 4 feet. So it's not very deep, and so it wouldn't take, you know, a really big ditch to move it, you know, over or wherever. But still, if I build a retaining wall, well, they won't let me build a retaining wall in an easement, and so that kind of nixes the whole idea of the, you know, the garage on the lower level, which is just kind of a car collector garage.
I'm kind of confused on what we can do here as the Platting Board with this, other than recommend or have this resolved with Watershed Management. So that's why I'm trying to find out if there's a way that you could resolve this with them.
Well, what that dashed line was on this plat, or this plan of mine, is well, it was the 7.5 feet that I think Van thought was needed, but it actually measures to be 8 feet, you know, in certain areas. So, you know, a couple of feet works, but any more than that, you know, I don't know what to do other than redesign the house. And it just is like, you know, I'm just fed up with the municipality taking things that don't belong to them. And, you know, we give them easements, give them things all the time that make sense. This one makes no sense to me. You know, it's on another person's lot, 7.5 feet away from my property, 8 feet away from my property. It's an existing, you know, facility, and I thought all watershed management things, when they exist, are there forever. You stay in the same location they were. So whether they have an easement or not, what I understand is that they have the right to maintain that facility. And, you know, they just crossing their T's and dotting their I's, and they don't care, you know, what happens to the individual person.
So is there an easement? Is there an easement that exists now for the storm drain?
They don't know if there's an easement. That's what they told me.
Okay, thank you.
Don Porter.
I guess, so that kind of went to my question through the chair. Dave, so is there an easement or is there not an easement on 6A at this point in time?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, I'm unsure if there's an easement at this point in time. I haven't, I wasn't involved in the meeting that Mr. Spinelli speaks to with Watershed Management and Jerry Hansen, and the conversations that I've had with Watershed haven't confirmed the existence of an easement, so I'm unsure.
Okay, through the chair, Mr. Spinelli, is there any construction on 6A at this point in time? Is it a blank lot?
It's a blank lot, and like I said before, my neighbors from my lot to the west, all put in, you know, $6,000 a piece to extend the electric and gas. And the neighbors on 6A, there's 4 more lots down there, decided not to extend the gas and electric to those lots at this time. So they have no, you know,
so the
plan to build anything in the near future.
And are they due to be replatted before they build on them?
They don't have to be replatted. They're, you know, at this point they don't have to. They got into a lawsuit exactly the same way as we did, but they lost their lawsuit, and it's a crazy thing. I don't even want to get into it, but
I don't want
so their lots are stagnant at this point as what they were originally platted.
Okay, thanks.
Dan Young.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm looking at the map that was submitted as part of the package, and it does show an easement on lot 8A, and it looks, you know, just by scale, it looks like it's 1 or 2 feet onto the property. Look right on the corner of lot 8A and the
Yes, it's the same.
large map.
It's the same thing that's on this blown up deal. And that's when we thought it was 7.5 feet from the center line of the pipe.
That's what it looks like to me.
That's what you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? So now we will hear from anyone else. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone from any groups or individuals? Say again? Yeah, he has 1 minute and 50 seconds for rebuttal.
Chair and the committee, my name is Joey Caternicchio, and I am the lot owner of 5A. Most importantly, there is 6 of us, and we do have intentions to build, and it's taken years to be able to do this. So you will enable us to start building down there, which a couple things will reduce crime. People are down there on the coastal trail living on empty lots, and a lot of neighbors are getting upset. So in order for us to build, this must be approved. Secondarily is the one thing that Chuck did not emphasize is that parcel, we all pay him taxes. It's very awkward. And by approving the lines to go out, we will eventually be taxed to our own address and to our own names and not as a group. So there's lots of different things going in other than building. The storm drain does indeed on 6A, and 6A is not going to be built on. And not that that should change anything, but I do think that the 6 of us have put in our own gas, our own electric. That should have been put in originally with the road. It wasn't, so we paid extra for that. We're paying extra for this plot, and we're trying to help the community by starting to get activity down there and build. Otherwise, it's just kind of a free-for-all. So most importantly is we hope you approve this. It's put a lot of help with the municipality, help from our group. There was 8 of us. The municipality did buy the lot 1 and 2 behind, so they have not had to participate in this. The rest of us have had to pay. So thank you for your time, and we look forward to this plat being approved. I also want to say that at the Turnagain Community Council, they did recommend it. As you see, there's letters. And so the fact that everybody is for it, we look forward to this plat being approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Did I get your name?
Joey Caterinicio,
How do you spell that last?
Caterinicio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And with that, we'll close the public hearing on this matter, and it now rests with the board. May I have a motion to approve the variance? Trevor Edmondson, would you please state your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S1-2308, Simonson Estate Subdivision Lots 3A through 8A, Block C, I move for approval of the variance request from 21.08.030K.2. Width of lot shall be at least 1/3 the depth of a lot, subject to the following condition: record a suitable plat within 24 months or any time extensions.
Thank you. And Christina Enix seconds your motion. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I intend to support my motion. Just like to state that the 4 conditions for approval of variances have all been met. I'd just like to touch on those briefly as findings. Condition 1, as a subdivision application as the result of a legal action and there's no other reasonable alternative, this constitutes a special circumstance that makes the strict application of the subdivision regulation unreasonable. Condition 2, the granting of this variance will not negatively impact neighboring property owners or the public. It will not permit a use not already enjoyed by the property owners in the area, and further development will consist of single-family homes, which is in keeping with the neighborhood. In regards to condition number 3, there are special circumstances affecting this property which warrant this variance. The remnant parcel is currently owned in common, and this plat seeks to subdivide in a manner that allows individual ownership of portions of the remnant parcel. It's been testified tonight. There's property tax issues in that regard. As far as condition 4, that standards met, undue hardship would result from strict application of the subdivision regulations, and the applicants are attempting to comply with a legal decision. I'd also find that there's, as been previously noted, there's intends to be no change in the use of the properties. There's been no objection by reviewing agencies or the community council, and that there has been no negative public comment or testimony. There was one letter that was returned to the board, I think was by the petitioner. So anyway, there was no other public testimony that was received.
Thank you. Are there any other findings? Dan Young.
Yes, through the chair, I also intend to support this motion, and I want to add as part of the findings that on page 80 of our staff packet is a memo from the Turnagain Community Council, who has listened to the petitioners, and although they took no action, so they had an opportunity to take action, and I interpret this no action as a support. So I want that in the findings.
Thank you. Any other findings? I'd like to also add as additional findings that the factual determinations made by the Supreme Court, I think, are binding on this board. The conclusions that they made are not necessarily binding on this board with respect to whether it meets the standards of the Anchorage Municipal Code. However, I do reach the same result with respect to this application meeting the standards for variances set forth in AMC 2103-240, which were issues not addressed by the Supreme Court, and will be supporting the motion. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the plat for 24 months? Trevor Edmondson, would you please state your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S12308, Simonson Estate Subdivision, lots 3A through 8A, Block C, I move for approval of the plat for 24 months, subject to conditions 1, 2, 3, and 4 on pages 7 and 8 of our staff packet, with one revision that I would like to make to condition B2. I move for condition B2 to read as following: resolve with watershed management the need to dedicate a 7.5-foot drainage easement on proposed Lot A, extending along the east property line from the southeast corner to the northeast corner.
And Don Porter seconds that motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I tend to support my motion. I'm certainly sympathetic to the petitioner's concerns regarding condition B2. Understand the challenges that there can be to resolve these particular issues. I think the way that this revision to the motion reads allows the petitioner to go back to watershed management, convince them of the fact that, you know, whether the 7.5 foot is needed or not. It certainly seems reasonable to me that less, you know, could be required than the 7.5 feet based on the current location of the storm drain line that's depicted on the drawing that Mr. Spinelli gave us. Unfortunately, we have no way to, you know, as a board to really determine that other than the drawing that was given to us by the petitioner. We have no information from staff regarding what actually lies on lot 6A adjacent to this. So we're, you know, sort of flying a little bit blind, in my opinion, in regards to how we can help resolve this situation, and the resolution really needs to be between the petitioner and watershed management and staff. So, you know, in general, again, you know, there were no objections by the reviewing agencies other than, you know, this comment from watershed management, and the community council did not have any objections regarding this particular issue as well. So anyway, that I intend to support my motion. Thanks.
Thank you. John Porter.
Yes, I too intend to support this motion, and I agree with Trevor. I have different words for B2, which I am loath to second guess the MOA staff in the sense of their desire and need for an easement requestment at this point in time. I would like to note that there's also already been some dialogue with Watershed on this issue, so it's not as if it was kind of, oh, they just threw it on there and didn't think about it. You know, there was some thinking that went behind it, and for us to second guess that is not the right place to be doing it. That said, being an engineer, I have to, I guess, get it on the record that the purpose of the drainage easement is that so that they can maintain the facility they intend to build or that they have in place at this point in time. So if you can work with them, say you want a retaining wall or say you want one of these other things, that's the whole purpose of this resolve with watershed management, the need for it. So if you can work out something that accomplishes your goals and you can show them structurally that they can maintain their system, then that is where the appropriate give and take should go, not here at the Platting Board. I believe that you can work with them and build a structure on your lot and show them that that's what you want to build, and then they might even be willing to retract the drainage easement to that line that you're going to build, given that they would be able to maintain their drainage system. That is the key and the crux of this. They need to maintain the system, and they are concerned about doing so. So satisfy their concerns, and I think you'll come to an agreement.
Are there any other findings? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Are there any appearance requests this evening? Are there any other persons to be heard this evening? Then in that case, we will now stand in adjournment.